Today, I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview of what Unito's Intercom integration looks like. So I have Intercom here open. I'm going to want to create a new conversation that is going to be shared from my customer success team that's working out of Intercom into, in this case, a project management tool, Asana, where the engineering team is going to be able to work and help on the issue that I'm working with. So I'm going to send this issue over right now, which is going to create that task inside of Intercom. And basically, the idea behind this is that I want to be able to instantaneously escalate issues or conversations that I'm having difficulty with, or that I want to raise to like a product team, for example, to get more visibility on. And so in this case, I've got this make Unito faster conversation that someone just messaged in. Now, the first step in order to get this synced into Unito is to assign this to the team in particular that I belong to, which is my new team. And this team is going to be acting as my block of work inside of Unito. Only the conversations that are in this team and then that still fit the appropriate filters or rules are going to be synced into the corresponding tool, in this case, Asana. And so I'm going to add a little bit more detail as a note. I'm going to say that this is not too high priority. This is low priority. And I also have this Eng status field here inside of Intercom that I'm going to get updates on automatically inside of Asana. Now, the last thing that I need before this gets set up is to hit the label, in this case, feature request, that is going to act as my trigger here. So without this feature request, this conversation wouldn't sync into Asana, but with this feature request turned on, now I'm going to be able to see that the feature request is going to be populated across the two tools. So I'm going to give this a couple of seconds to propagate. Our Intercom integration does work every 5 minutes because we don't have live sync on it just quite yet, but I can trigger that manually. So it's come over as a task in my new request column based on the settings that I set up. It has the same conversation title as the task in Unito. You can manipulate that if you want them to have different names. I can see the tag feature request comes through as well, that gets nicely mapped. And I can see that this is fairly low priority. Great. Now, the internal notes that my customer adds in Intercom is going to be appearing here in the comments. If I want to send a message back, that information is going to be synced back into an internal note. We'll only sync to internal notes for the moment. Nothing is going to be synced to public reply, but it still would be able to sync to Intercom so that the team in Intercom can get an update on what's going on here. It doesn't have to end here. Like I mentioned with that Eng status field in Intercom, that custom field that I configured, if I move this task from new requests to in progress, my customer facing team is going to be able to see that the task is updated in terms of its status and let the customer know, hey, we're actually already on this and working on it. So like last time, I'm going to give this a couple seconds to load through. And when I go back into Intercom, I can see that this little comment was added by my operator with the name of the person who commented on it, and that the field called Eng status was set to in progress in this case. So that now if I want to, I can let my customer know. So that's how Unito works. Let me show you a little bit about what's going on in the background. It's super straightforward and very easy. If I go back to my overview here, I'll be able to see first the name of the team that I've selected to sync items with in Intercom and the name of the project in Asana that I want to sync to. Like I mentioned, everything needs to be in a team in Intercom for it to be able to sync through. Then I've got my one-way sync selected. And this is always going to be one way from Intercom to Asana. What this means is that new conversations will always be created from Intercom. I can never create new conversations from inside of Asana, but I'll still be able to, like I showed you, configure and have things on an individual conversation flow both ways when I look at the field mapping here. The rules, like I mentioned, is going to share the Intercom conversation from Intercom into Asana so that you're not overwhelming your engineering team, for example, from new requests. In this case, that trigger is that if a work item is in Intercom, in this my new team, it's open, it has one of these 3 tags on it, then in Asana, I'm going to see that conversation come across. That's the simplest trigger. In this case, I'm using a tag just because that's what my team already uses in order to aggregate and report on the number of issues that they've had in a given week. Once I've selected that trigger, the last part is just setting up the field mappings. And that field mapping is basically deciding how is information in Intercom going to flow into Asana and vice versa. In this case, I've mapped things like my Eng status custom field in Intercom to the sections and columns in Asana so that when something moves in Asana, I've got that information popped into Intercom. I've got the priorities mapped, tags, attachments. All of your custom fields in Intercom can be mapped as well. So if there's anything that you don't have mapped out of the gate or that's important information that you want to share, you can just select it here and have that come across. And that's it. That's Unito's Intercom integration. Great for tools like Asana that don't have a native integration, but also ones where you want to get a little bit more bang out of the integrations that you have, like Trello or like Jira. So if you have any questions about how this works, feel free to reach out to our team. Otherwise, happy syncing.